Hey Ben, so this is your results video. I'm just going to use this as a tool real quick to give you the results and the rundown so that hopefully you can understand this a little quicker than me just typing out a paragraph, but I will send that to you as well. So let's go through this really quickly. So we have these scores here in SPSS from the well-being survey that you administered before the seminars. So we have the average scores here for each item question that the 95 respondents responded with. Then we have the post scores as well. Okay, so we have the post scores, and let's take a look at the difference between these. If I can find it, actually, we'll go to compare means. These are paired samples. We'll look at pre-well-being. So we'll look at pre-well-being and post-well-being. Okay, so here we are. And so you can see right here, we want to look at the means. So basically there's almost no difference between these two groups. Okay, these two numbers are very similar, meaning that students scored almost the same on items between one survey, the first one you administered, and the second survey later on after the seminars. It is significant. It's less than 0.05, which is the standard statistics rule, but it is very weak, a very weak result. So let's look at the other results here. So that's the first conclusion. First conclusion, there is a very tiny difference between the first group and the second group, and that difference is actually that the first group scored higher on well-being than the second group. So the first group before the seminars scored higher on the well-being scale compared to the second group afterwards. So let's look at the bullying, and you should see trends here. Let me find that one. So pre-bullying. So pre-bullying, they scored lower on those bullying questions, those 6 questions, and post, they actually scored a tiny bit higher. This one, not significant at all, 0.567. So basically, to put it in general terms, for all your survey results, students basically scored the exact same. So why did they score the exact same? What else can we pick out of this? Well, you could say, okay, and it was very, very smart of you to put in how useful are the seminars, because this is really where you get into the nitty-gritty part of it here. So how useful are the seminars? Let's take a look. How useful do you find the information? So I'm looking at all the useful questions, I think there's about 5 of them. So how useful? So the useful questions, generally participants are scoring, well, there's 4 of them, so under 3. So 3 is okay. Under 3 means that these seminars did not impact the students to the degree that they wanted it to. So they're not quite connecting with your students, and that just means that your students have different opinions over how they see bullying and how they want it to be fixed, and what they think is the most appropriate way to do that and the most appropriate information to have. So that is the result there, and that makes good sense of why we don't see higher well-being scores, post scores later on. We don't see higher bullying scores when we should, and yeah, so that makes sense. Those are the results there. So they didn't find the seminars extremely useful, which is too bad. But that's okay. We'll look at that a little bit more because there's tons of learning points out of that. So one more thing is to look at, you asked here, where is this? You asked to look at the population norm. So look at the results compared to the rest of the population, which is via this chart here. So the population in general scores around an average of 118.74 on this survey as a total score. So 118.74 as a total score. Now, on average, your class is a fair bit below that, so 98.75, 97.05. So that's pretty significant. Your class is pretty far under the national average. Now, of course, you have only have 95 people, and there's a lot of different reasons why it could be under. It doesn't mean that it's the worst thing ever. It just means that there's something going on in the class, or there's something different about that section of population that's different from the national average, and that's fine. It could be over, it could be under for different groups. It's pretty normal to see those kinds of results. So what can you do about this? What can you present on? I'm not totally sure what you're presenting on. I just thought I'd throw in a few ideas. So these questions are very rich. They give you a lot of information from the students. So what topic was not discussed that you would like to hear about? Definitely a lot of interesting topics here. Not a ton of themes. Some school related stuff, some how we treat each other stuff. A lot of stress and relaxation and how do I deal with getting organized and those kinds of topics came up a bunch here. And then question two, any feedback. So the feedback, a lot of it was make the talks more engaging. The talks need to be improved. There's a lot of criticism of the talks in general. There was also some good points that it was useful, but there was a lot of negative points that something more needs to be done to stop bullying and for people to learn about it and things like that. So those are that's the gist of all the conclusions that I've come to based on the data analysis, and hopefully that gives you kind of a rundown of everything, the results. Feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to reach out to me if something doesn't make sense, and I'm going to send you the results and the data. I'm going to send you a little paragraph just on the key results, and hopefully you can go from there. All right, thanks a lot, Ben. Bye.